Imagine working alone in a morgue. It's the middle of the night. The lights flicker overhead, the air is unnaturally cold, and the silence feels heavier than stone. You're surrounded by dozens of metal drawers, each one holding a body that used to breathe, used to speak, used to live. What would you do if you heard one of those drawers opening? What would you do if you saw one of those bodies standing right in front of you? This is the true story of Endrich, a man who once worked the night shift in the morgue of an old hospital in Dallas, Texas. And what he experienced one night made him question the boundary between the living and the dead. Endrich wasn't new to night work. He had spent years doing security at warehouses and office buildings, but when a position opened in the hospital's basement morgue, he took it. The pay was better, the hours were steady, and the job seemed, at least on paper, quiet. His duty was simple: stay in the morgue from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. Keep watch over the bodies stored there, record every entry and exit, and make sure the facility remained secure. The morgue itself was a windowless, sterile place. White fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, occasionally flickering in ways that never felt intentional. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and something colder, metallic, like ice against steel. Along the walls stood rows of stainless steel drawers. Each drawer was large enough to hold a body, sealed tight, labeled with names, dates, and sometimes just numbers. During most nights, nothing happened. He sat at the little desk by the door, drank cheap coffee, filled out his log, and listened to the static-filled hum of an old radio he brought from home. But in the morgue, even silence felt alive. Every drip of a pipe, every groan of the building settling above, every creak of a drawer expanding against the cold. It all echoed in ways that kept him uneasy. It was just past 1 a.m. when Endrich first noticed something unusual. He had been sipping his coffee, trying to fight off the heaviness in his eyelids, when he heard a sound. Click, click. Like the slow unlatching of metal. At first, he thought it was his imagination. But the sound came again. He set down his cup, stood up, and walked between the rows of drawers. Every handle looked sealed, every door tight. He touched one, cold, unmoving. Another locked. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he swore he saw one of the handles twitch. Just a fraction of an inch, as though something inside had shifted. He froze, waited. Nothing. Shaking his head, he muttered, "It's just the building. Just the pipes." And he forced himself back to his chair. Minutes later, the overhead light in the hallway outside his room blinked off, then on again. Off. On. Off. He knew he was alone on that floor. The switches for those lights were in a locked panel. He told himself it was just faulty wiring, but unease had begun to gnaw at him. By 1:30, the room had grown colder. His breath left pale clouds in front of him. He pulled his jacket tighter and walked toward the thermostat on the wall, unchanged. That's when he noticed it. From one of the drawers near the far end of the room, a faint mist was escaping through the seams. Thin tendrils of white vapor curled outward, slithering toward the floor like smoke. His stomach tightened. He knew those drawers were sealed and chilled, but they never leaked like that. He approached slowly, each step echoing louder than the last. As he reached out to touch the handle, the drawer shuddered violently, rattling against its tracks, as if something inside was pushing, slamming, demanding to be let out. Endrich stumbled back, his pulse hammering in his throat. For a long moment, the drawer shook and banged, metal against metal, until, suddenly, it stopped. The mist faded. The room fell silent again. Endrich wanted to leave. Every instinct told him to abandon his post, climb the stairs, and breathe the air of the living. But he needed the job, and so he forced himself to stay. At 1:50, he left the main morgue chamber to check the hallway. That's when he saw her. A woman, maybe mid-30s, wearing a faded hospital gown. Her hair hung limp and wet against her shoulders. She walked slowly, bare feet making no sound on the linoleum floor. "Ma'am?" Endrich called softly, his voice trembling. "Are you lost?" She didn't respond, didn't even turn her head. He hurried after her, his footsteps echoing too loud. She moved ahead without changing pace, then turned sharply into the auxiliary storage room, a place that held overflow drawers, rarely used, locked most of the time. He followed, pushed open the door. The room was empty. No woman, no sound. But on the floor, leading toward one of the drawers, were wet footprints. Bare, human footprints, stopping at a single cabinet marked with a paper tag. Endrich bent down to read it. The handwriting on the label was rushed but clear. His hands trembled as he backed away. He returned to his desk, desperate for the familiarity of his radio, his coffee, anything that reminded him of the living. But the radio wasn't playing music anymore. It hissed with static. Then, through the static, came a whisper. "So cold. Please, let me out." The voice was faint, stretched, as if carried across a distance longer than death itself. Endrich's coffee cup tipped, spilling across the logbook. He scrambled to turn the radio off, but the dial wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder. "Don't leave me here. Don't close the door again." Every word stabbed into him like ice. He yanked the power cord from the wall. The radio fell silent, but in that silence, he heard something else. A soft cry. A woman's sob. Coming not from the hallway, not from the office, but from the drawer labeled Maria Gonzalez. Endrich decided he had to leave. Enough was enough. He grabbed his jacket, his keys, and pushed through the door into the hallway. But the corridor didn't feel right. It stretched longer than it should have. Doors that normally led to supply closets now opened into more hallways. No matter which way he turned, the path circled back, always leading him to the morgue again. It was as though the building itself had shifted, trapping him inside a maze of cold walls and silent lights. Breathing hard, he pushed open a door marked Exit, only to find himself stepping right back into the drawer room. Every handle seemed to rattle now. Every drawer trembled. A metallic chorus of banging filled the air. "Let me out," the whispers said. Dozens of voices now, some angry, some pleading, all rising together. Then came the scream. A sharp, piercing cry of a woman, echoing through the morgue. Endrich ran toward it, his shoes slamming against the floor. He knew where it came from even before he saw it. The drawer labeled Maria Gonzalez stood open, wide, empty. The footprints on the floor were fresh again, leading away from the drawer, vanishing into the shadows at the far end of the room. His chest heaved, his mind racing. God, please, no. He turned, desperate to escape, and caught sight of the mirror fixed to the wall near the desk. In the reflection, he saw himself, and behind him, a woman. Skin pale blue, lips cracked and frozen. A hospital gown clinging damply to her thin body. Her hair hung in dark, wet strands. Her eyes, black, with depthless despair, stared directly into his. She whispered, not through the radio this time, not through the walls, directly into his ear. "I am still here. Don't let them close me again." Her hand, ice cold, brushed his shoulder. The lights exploded into darkness. Metal clanged, drawers slamming open and shut. The room filled with the stench of rot and the weight of cold. The whispers became a roar. Endrich screamed, stumbling backward, hands clawing for the door. But he never made it. His knees buckled, his chest locked, and the world spun into blackness. When the morning staff arrived, they found Endrich unconscious on the morgue floor. His logbook lay soaked with spilled coffee. The drawers were all sealed, every one of them, even Maria Gonzalez. Her body was still inside, untouched. The label had not moved. When Endrich woke, he swore by everything holy that he had seen her walking. He swore he had heard her voice. He swore her hand had touched him. He refused to return to the hospital. He quit that very day. And to this day, workers whisper about the Dallas morgue, about the night watchman who was never the same after what he saw. Some say Maria still walks those corridors, searching for someone to open her drawer again. So if you ever find yourself in a hospital basement, and you hear the faint hiss of static or the soft cry of a woman, whatever you do, don't forget, like, comment and subscribe. The Bone Library.